many doors to sources of income were closed. Major sources. Have people not learned from the experience of MMM, or we just have a large appetite to take dangerous risk? But there are people.
Um, an asset is something you own. A liability is something you pay. So that's a layman's way.
So a car is an asset then.
A car is an asset. A car is an asset, but the thing about it is that it because it's a depreciating asset. It depreciates far faster than a a land, for instance, or a building. So in accounting, what we would do is that while we would depreciate a car by, let's say, 25% of the value every year, in which case that car will have fully been depreciated in 4 years. A piece of building or a piece of property, we will depreciate it at maybe like, we will not say depreciate, we will amortize it at about 2 or 3% a
Every
and
year.
what that means is that we are taking off parts of its value little by little over the years. So it's an asset, but there are the levels to which that value of that asset reduces, uh, um, differs. And you know also that while for a piece of property, it can appreciate in value while it is still being amortized. So, unlike a car, for instance, that can completely depreciate away. So, another way of looking at it, especially when you have debt. So, imagine that you borrowed money to buy a car. So, is it still an asset? Question is yes, it's still an asset.
It's still an asset. Okay.
And so, what you would do is that you would show, if you are to have a personal balance sheet, your car will be in the part where we call the non-current um, assets, as a fixed asset, while the money you borrowed to buy it will be in your current liability. Okay, so so that's how we account for it. It's the same thing as borrowing money to buy a house. The house is an asset. All right, the mortgage you are paying for it is a liability. So that's how you balance it. I don't know if I'm confusing you, but
We are trying.
that's how it is.
All right. Just a bit. Let me hear Ayo's perspective, and then Boma is here to ask a question.
Okay, I think. Can you hear me? I think you should be able to hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Good.
It's
Okay.
fine,
All
it's
right.
fine.
So I think it cannot be put any better than the way my brother Bishop has put it. But what I would add to it is this: your liability finances your assets. Your liabilities finances your assets. From the analogy he gave, you have a car that you bought it with a loan. The loan you got is your liability. Don't forget what he said is that liability is what you pay, asset is what you own. So, what you own is the asset, what you pay is the liability. So, when you go to the bank to borrow money, the borrowing is a liability because you are going to pay it back. But you have bought a car with it. So what you bought, what you have financed is the asset. So liabilities would always finance assets.
If you
Well, should
if
because of
you
what he said.
if you use the money to go and buy food and clothes,
If you use the money to buy food and clothes, again, the way Brother Inka has put it, still remains valid.
okay,
The borrowing remains a liability. The food you bought
the
is an
asset.
asset. The clothes you bought
an
is
asset.
also an asset. However, like he said, the car is grouped under the non-current assets.
okay,
Now, non-current assets are The other name is fixed assets. They last longer beyond a year.
Okay.
However, the food and the clothes may be grouped under current assets. That is, they are utilized within a short period of time.
Okay.
Now, you need to put all that into consideration whenever you want to buy or whenever you are borrowing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Obama, come and ask the question now.
Technical areas of accounting, but I'll try and explain why. And this is peculiar to certain fixed assets. You can't get it for others. We have furniture and fittings, machineries, and all that. But what we want to do first of all is to establish what's the book value of that asset. The book value of that asset is the value to which you bought it. All right, so that's the book value. Now, the book value can be different from the market value. You're right, because it's a decision question. For instance, I can buy a house 2 years ago. Let's say I bought a house 2 years ago at 40 million naira. Now, the value of that house today might have increased to about 50 million naira. But in my book, the book value of that house is 40 million naira. And I'll still be doing my amortization, which is another way of saying depreciation anyway, at 3% or 2% per annum. Now, I can choose to leave it at book value, or I can choose to, at some point in the future, revalue that asset.
As revalue it.
Okay. Yes, I can choose to revalue it. Now, whether I choose to leave it at book value or revalue it is usually dependent upon my financial strategy, because there are always implications to my revaluing the asset at a higher value. You understand? So there are loads of companies, for instance, that have assets in their balance sheet that are worth more than what they are carrying, but they're deliberately leaving it as that, because they want to keep a level of profitability. Remember, if you revalue the asset and it is at a higher level, higher value, your amortization level will go up. That 3% will go up. All right. That also means that your profit will go down. So it's a financial strategy issue, and
It doesn't affect
I'm not sure, that unless the listeners to this session are companies and enterprises that want to do financial structuring, restructuring. If they are for strictly personal finance, I think that is overstep.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, what?
Yeah, just to add to it. So he's put it in a very clear manner. And if you find yourself to be the CFO of any company, that's probably what you'll be looking at. But looking at it from a personal, yes, for personal dealings, you may not want to do that. So for personal dealings, you have your personal balance sheet. You bought the land 1 million. 5 years down the line, it has become. In fact, I am not sure you'll be doing your balance sheet year on year. It's probably what you look at when next you want to sell. And then because you want to sell, you now this land is no longer 1 million, it's now 5 million. So you change your balances, so you have a bigger balance sheet. Now you can go ahead and do that. But don't also, because you are going to sell it eventually, government is just waiting outside the door. Once your deal is closed, they're asking for their tax. Their own portion, which is called tax. And their tax is determined by the amount with which you've sold it. Except if you want to do sharp practices, then you go around the corner and say, guy, let's do this way, paper value, and then you do but of course, as Christian, that is not but whichever way you want to handle it is, that's left to you.
All right. So, closing thoughts. By next month, we are going to be looking at specific investment opportunities that we should take position and probably encourage people that look. From my own experiences, these are safe industries, safe areas to be looking at or to be positioning yourself. Probably from your own wealth of network of friends and people you constantly talk with. You can say, look, in another 2 3 years, this particular opportunity will be hot cake. This particular industry should be looking at it so that those who are listening, who are probably putting some investment savings somewhere, who can be positioning to latching on those particular opportunities. But before we close today, let's look at the principle of personal finance budgeting, the principle of budgeting. Um, because um, a lot of us believe that people who talk about budget are people that have big money. How much where I get, I want to budget. Share money will never be enough. That I don't have enough. Now I want budget. So a lot of people believe companies and people who have made it. Um, how I'm not sure whether the likes of our brothers in Aspanda, Alaba, whether they do any personal, any business budgeting and all of that, whether they understand this principle or not. But for personal finance, and I know that Bishop particularly has written a book, a classic one, Honey Is It in the Budget. So I want us to go through the basic principle of budgeting and to re-establish again that this principle cuts across. It's not restricted to when you start having money. In fact, if you don't understand the principle of budgeting, as at the point where you have 100 naira, 200 naira, 1,000 naira, you probably will not be able to have the discipline when you now have a lot of money. So, but let's try and establish the principles. I'll come to Yinka again, since you have, it's an area of passion and you have a book already. Honey Is in the Budget. I probably hope you are working on a rejoinder or a season 2 of that, a second edition. So the basic principle of budgeting, to the extent that the likes of Derry, Caleb, and a secondary school person will understand. Not Derry everywhere. All right, you got.
I'm not sure Derry and Co will understand what I'm about to say. But let me give it a try. The first thing you do is that you need to divide all your transactions into income and expenditure. And so the income items, you need to divide them into categories and subcategories. So the same thing with expenditure items. You're likely to have more expenditure items than you have income items. So for instance, you can have household expenses. And under household expenses, you have a subcategory for groceries, for NEPA bills, for fixing the sink, some subcategories. You can also have a category for giving, for instance, where you give your tithes, your offerings, your stuff like that. So the first thing you need to do is identify all your income items and all your expenditure items and divide them into categories and subcategories. That's very key in your budgeting. And second thing that you need to take into consideration is take inputs from your actuals. By this, I mean that before you do a budget, you must have, first of all, taken stock or taken accounts or tracked your expenditures and income over a period of time. So usually I say that track it for 6 months, but people are usually not ready to wait for 6 months. So track it for as long as you can. Yeah. And from the lessons, from the feedbacks you get from it, you have a fair idea what to budget, what to put under each category. The number 3 is factor in microeconomic factors. I doubt if Derry will understand microeconomics, but I will explain what microeconomics means. So things like inflation, for instance, microeconomics. So for instance, that the inflation rate in Nigeria right now is about 12%. And so when you're budgeting for food items next year, for instance, You factor in
My wife will be
12%.
interested in that. How many percent?
So you factor in microeconomics factors. You also factor in things like exchange rates. So if I'm doing expenditures in maybe you're paying school fees abroad or whatever, those kind of things matter. You might not even be paying school fees abroad. Just go into your wardrobe, for instance, and check all your clothes. If they're all TM11s,
Mama D, how
Mark and
many brands on
Spencers,
here?
and co, you're basically using naira
It's actually
to
TN
make
Nigeria.
Yeah.
dollar and euro consumption. So you need to factor in microeconomic things, indicators or rates into your budget, and then you also need to give to have a cutoff date for your budget. Your budget must have power for it to have effect. So you must be able to set a date to say, you know what, the budget takes effect from this date going forward. So it starts. Usually, I do a January to December budget. So my budget starts from January 1 to December 31st. Okay, and once you do that, it means that you will not go and tinker with that budget. As in, you will not go there every month
Even if the
to
Lord is asking you
change
to do
it.
something about the budget.
The Lord would have told
Even
you
if
at
the
the
Lord is
beginning.
asking you to do so, fine. If God is asking you to do so, fine, and you obey the Spirit of the Lord. But I'm pretty sure that God will not ask you to go and
Brother
do
Inga,
that.
please let me help you there a bit. Allow me. Before you even start your budget, you would have consulted God, isn't it? God would have told you exactly what to do. And because I know that it is not an author of confusion, he will not come midway and say, okay, do it this way. That is my belief about God.
It's all right. All right, fire on, Rika. There are people
Yeah,
who believe that if you are walking by faith, the principle of budgeting negates the spirit and character of faith. That if you are a person of faith, when you budget, you are restricting God and restricting the capacity and the ability of God to bless you. You are actually restricting your stream of.
it is not it is not right. Neither is it biblical.
Yeah, in fact,
The the
I was going to defend you again.
the building of the temple was a budgeted
Precisely.
experience. The temple was budgeted from day one. You looked at the dimensions that God gave to Moses.
Thank you.
Everything was nothing was left to chance. Everything, including the materials they will need, the amounts of it. You read the parable of the talents, and you realize the fact that the God we deal with is a meticulous planner. So anybody that tells you that God, that they don't plan because God, the Holy Spirit can move in any way. They're only trying to substitute their laziness, their inability to plan, for spirituality, and God is not an author of confusion. So again, we must stress that your budget is not a God that you serve. It's a guide.
It's a
It's just a
guide.
guide. That's all. So the purpose of the budget
Consolation.
is just for you to make comparison with actual. It's a guide. So the fact that you did a budget doesn't mean that you cannot exceed it or you cannot go below it. It just gives you that
A guide.
guide, and allows God to be able to bless the work of your hands.
Wow, fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you for that input. Let me hear Ayo's additional input.
Okay, I can only add to what Brother Inka has said because he's dealt with it in such a manner that even during, if she sat here, she probably would understand it. What I would add is this. There is always an objective behind every budget. So before you go into the operations, like Brother Inka has highlighted, you must first of all set your objective. That is what drives you. That is what guides your discipline. Don't forget that it's about discipline. And like Brother Inka said,
So I can start with this year. I want to scale down my expenses 50%.
exactly, that is an objective. So you want to scale that expense by 50% and increase savings by that value.
This year, I want to cut down 70% of buying of clothes in the house.
So again,
Can be an
you
objective.
must be realistic with that because you will not end up at the end of the day just a mere exercise that you
know,
cannot follow.
I cannot follow.
And like he said, you
That's
need
to be
to
smart.
check the trends. You need to be as realistic as possible so that at the end of the day, you will not find yourself that you just did an exercise that you cannot even follow. Again, in management sciences, they will tell you that for everything, you need to be smart. Number one, you must be specific. You must be able to measure it. It must be achievable, realistic, and has time. Like he has said, you must be able to put time when it will start, and when it would end. For him, it's from January to December, just the same way I do. So time must be there. It must be specific. That is where the discipline comes in. You must be able to measure it. What is not measured is not achieved. And it must be realistic. So if you say you want to cut down your dressing or your clothes by 70%, the question is that realistic? Is that the trend? Is that what should happen?
Somebody will tell me it's not realistic. Right?
So you need to align. So like I said, once you have set your objective from the beginning, take for instance, my wife and I, December last year, what we said is we're going to double our savings. Now the question now is, where would that come from? Because our income from the analysis we did would not change materially, except there's a miracle somewhere.
Okay.
Perhaps in the office there's an increment in salary, or the businesses we are doing here and there, there's an increase in volume. But before you start, you must be able to have certain assumptions that will guide your figures. So the thing is, we have said there isn't going to be any increase. This is what our income stream will look like. And then this is what our expense has been over the year. The question is, what can we cut down in order to improve the savings? So we looked at it, okay, come to think of it. This
Ashwebi.
Ashwebi, for instance. Well, for Ashwebi, you know all those ones, we put them under miscellaneous, and it does not go beyond 10% of the entire value. That's what we do. So once it is beyond 10%, immediately everything stops. No more frivolous spend in order to meet the target that we have set. And like he said, it is only a guide. There are times that there will be a miscellaneous that is out of the budget, but is extremely compulsory for you to do. It is not our God, like he said. And in fact, I love the way he has put so many things. And then you must make adjustments, which means that you would do what we call, you need to revise your budget. You probably flex your budget again, depending on the realities on ground. Take, for instance, the budget we made in December. There is need for us to revise. We are doing it already because it's half year. Because of the microeconomic indices he talked about has come in handy in here. Things have changed. In a few days from now, or in a couple of days, there's going to be unification of exchange rates. So where
What does that mean?
okay, so there are different rates for manufacturers. There's a exchange rate with which you buy dollar. For those people who are going on holidays, there's a rate with which you buy. It's only in Nigeria you find such things. But what they are doing right now is to unify everything. You want to go on holidays, it is this amount. You want to manufacture, it is that amount. Everything is coming to one rate. It will definitely affect some people positively and affect some others negatively. We can go on and on that, but I'm not going to dwell on it because that's not the topic for today. But like I said, at the beginning, set an objective and then follow in details. Like my brother has put it, it can be more detailed. For as long as, once we are dealing with personal, that's how it goes. Again, you must also be able to set, I was just going to say this, but good enough you mentioned it. You would also set certain assumptions. I don't call them assumptions, I call them my basics. If I said that I do 30% savings of my income
Annually.
Per month, once the money comes, it moves straight. Some are on autopilot. I have the order there. As the money is landing, it is moving. Exactly. And then I look back, I asked my wife, how much do I have? And she would just look at me and she would smile. And she would say it with laughter. And I said, look, like I mentioned earlier, as far as I'm concerned, this is the time to save. For me, it is. And then again, for some savvy investors, if you looked at it, you find out that the stock market is beginning to go on the downward trend. When the whole COVID started, I was initially contemplating whether the, what's it called? IMF of this world were just doing voodoo economics because they were predicting doom. But you find out that the stock market was actually going up. Maybe because our economy is somewhat sluggish in response to the global economy, right now, in fact, the whole of last week, we only saw a positive index. Only one day. All other days were down. And I think the all share index right now is, capitalization is sub 13. At some point, it was 14. So we are looking at 12 point something trillion. So all these things tell you what is happening within the environment. Like I said, for you to be financially intelligent, some of these things you must follow. If you don't understand them, ask those who know. They will tell you because, look, the sons of
Go on, sorry.
in the Bible, the sons of Issachar, they understood the signs. It does not go beyond this. You seeing what is happening and asking people, what does this mean? It will tell you. When you see the stock market going down, I can tell you the economy is also going down. When he talked about inflation, there are so many things around it. That simple word means a whole lot. Take, for instance, you've put your money, those of us who are investing, the best rate you get for a 90-day or 180-day treasury bill would not be more than, at best, 3.8%. Now, which means that if you put 100,000, you will get 3,800.
For 90 days.
Yes. So only 3,800 has entered into your account. But hey, if I annualized it, it will come to a certain amount. And then if I discounted inflation, the question is, have you made a profit or have you made a loss? If I multiplied 3 by 12, by 4, because if it's 90 days, you have 90 days 4 times in a year. 3 by 4 comes to 12. If inflation is 12%, it means that I have neither made a profit nor a loss in real economic terms.
Okay.
However, like he mentioned again, there are certain sectors of the economy that can give you as much as 40%, 50%, even 70% returns, but not necessarily money market instruments. But there will be things like you going into farming, you going into certain productions, particularly in what we call the high growth areas. When you have all those ones, you may have those returns.
Okay. When people hear 40%, 70%, I am interested. I am interested. All right, you go. That's the conversation for next month. Because I was going to, and just to whet our appetite, that are there truly investments that are 100% guaranteed? You can put your money and go to bed, and in fact, you can go and look for trouble. Banking on that money, that nothing. This is going to be conversation for next month anyway. But I just wanted, in closing, Mr. Edgar, to just comment. I mean, you heard, even though these things are high risk, but there are still investment in this our present day Nigeria that can offer as much as 40%, 50%, and as mentioned, agriculture. And I also want to add, are there investments that are sure banker? I mean, they may not be high risk, but you can be 100% certain that if you put your money here, go and sleep, you will definitely get returns. Your money is as sure as First Bank. Yeah, First Bank is sure. Mr. Ika, in closing.
You're asking me if there are investments in Nigeria that you are sure you get in returns?
Sure banker. And
Yeah,
that they're up to 40 and 50%.
Sorry, what percent?
And that is up to 40 and 50% returns.
This thing is very interesting. Is that people are willing to look at high yields in returns without considering the high risk of it. Okay, so just settle in your mind this thing simply. If it's high risk, if it's high yield, it is high risk. It's as simple as that. There's no other way around it. If it's high yield, it is high risk. The only investment that you are sure that will return, that you have your returns for you, are investments that don't guarantee your principal. That is,
Don't
your
guarantee your
principal is
principal.
safe, okay,
Okay.
and you will get your interest. So those are investments like treasury bills, mutual funds, and co. And even those mutual funds, there are specific mutual funds that can give you that bond fund, mutual money market fund, whatever. Those funds, they guarantee your principal. But listen, any investment that guarantees your principal is low risk. Any
Any
investment that
investment
does
that
not
guarantees
guarantee
your
your
capital.
principal is high risk.
No, that
It
guarantees
means
your
that you can
principal is low risk.
it means that you can make twice that amount of money, 100% in like 30 days you can make it. But you can also lose 100% in 30 days.
Yeah.
And so people must realize that. I mean, I've seen people come to me, for instance, to say, this person offered me this investment, oh, and everything, and at the end of the day, I've just lost my money. And I'm like, why are you asking me? What do you want me to do? No, yeah, Mr. Inka, well, yeah, we have to do something, no? Well, I'm going to call the police. And I said, why are you wasting your time? I mean, you knew in the first place when you were putting your money there that the returns were high. You were happy to do it because you looked at the high yields. But what you don't realize is that with those high yields comes the risk of you losing the principal itself. So you cannot hit your cake and have it. It's like investing in a startup.
Startup.
You can invest in a startup, for instance, by buying equity. But the reality is that you can lose every of the amount you invest in startup in the same way as you invest in equity. So people must just settle that in their minds that when you go into any high yields investment, it is likely that that investment does not guarantee your principal, and it's likely that it's going to be high risk for you, and it's likely as well that you are going to gain a lot of money if it goes right, and you will lose a lot of money if it doesn't go right. But if you are looking for something that guarantees your principal, something that you will have returns, steady returns over many years, then you look for low risk investments, money market investments, fixed income investments, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's well. One will say, well, I will take the high risk investment and go and submit the name of the company to MFM. I'll be praying, Lord. I will put God insurance on the investment. All right. It's been a great, great, great conversation today. For every one of you who joined us online, we had a bit of technical itch as usual at the beginning. I learned that Facebook was were doing their stuff as usual, so we probably eventually landed with the YouTube. So, and then of course, if at any time you, those of our online audience, you find out that the video streaming on any platform is not going well, the best thing to do is to ensure you always have the digits 102 as a backup. Once you are finding difficult to hear very well or to see very well, just switch and go to the audio streaming on digits 1024. You will hear it crystal clear and you will not miss out on anything. All right. So let's have that. We're going to continue to get better on this technical side from month to month. All right. But we want to appreciate all our audience that are with us and have stayed with us. I hope that the conversation has been very valuable to your financial literacy for this year. I want to thank Mr. Ayodele Odulaja for finding time. I hope that you still have the time by next month to be here. Hopefully, we probably should have had our complete, I hope, complete ease of the lockdown, and probably we'll have a fuller house here physically. But like Ayo said, he still sees that we are still in the core, and we are still neck deep, and the virus is still increasing his ministry. So, well, that's how we're going to draw the cut. I want to thank Mr. Yinka Ogunubi for finding time from his very busy schedule to share his thoughts. We hope by next month we want to talk specifically on certain investment offers, opportunities, and to guide listeners and audience or the audience on where they should probably be looking at. We're probably not making guaranteed prediction, but just to offer our own expertise on areas that people should be looking at. Then we're also going to look at relevant skills people should start developing right now for them to find a place of relevance in the economy tomorrow. Things that people, skills that people should now be making themselves proficient in if they are going to remain relevant in the current matters in the economy of Nigeria or globally. So you don't want to mix next month. It's going to be a great time, and we're going to have Mr. Ayo Otulaja and Mr. Yinka are going to be come back to share their thoughts. So this is how we want to draw the curtains today. Don't forget to download the Digits app 1024. First of all, follow Mr. Yinka is a social media influencer, and like I said, behind his back, I can say it's in front of him now, that he breathes on Twitter. And the account was recently almost threatened, and we didn't waste time at all to protect and guard it very well. I'm glad you are back, and you have. I hope Twitter recognized that that particular account is a lifeline for a lot of people, and they restored you back. So you can follow him on Twitter, Yinka. I don't know why. Okay, maybe I should ask you, what is the Chukwe maker? Because I'm sure that it's not in your middle name. Yinka Chukwe maker Ogunubi. What inspired this Chukwe maker thinking?
It's a very very short story. I went out to buy ground pepper because I was cooking beans.
You were cooking,
you know, and I wanted to have a bit of pepper in it. So I got to the stall, and then I asked the woman, you know, that was the woman that the market seller. I said I wanted pepper, and she wanted to know what did I need it for. I said I'm cooking beans, and she was like, "Why am I putting pepper in beans?" I said I'm a Yoruba man now, you know, and Yoruba men like pepper in everything that they do. And she said, "But you don't look like a Yoruba man. You know, you look like an Igbo man." And for a strange reason, I found that as a compliment. So I came on Twitter, and I said that you know, so I narrated the story on Twitter, and I said that you know, somebody said that I look like an Igbo guy, so that if I was an Igbo man, what name will I be called? So that was how it started. And then there was a Twitter poll. There was a Twitter poll between 4 names. I think the names were Chinedu, Chukwemeka, Chinazo, and then one other one. But Chukwemeka won the day flat. So that's how I got christened with Chukwemeka.
May I suggest mine? Odinaka.
No, that will not work. I will reject that one with all my might.
Okay, so on Twitter is Yinka Chukwemeka Ogunubi. You can follow, and you know, and You have very, very, very great thoughts about finances, politics, and great stuff. Positive vibe there. You can also follow Digits on 1024 Radio, Digit on all platforms, Digit 1024 on all platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also follow Adeolu Papadi Ogunubi on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Igbo name. Nobody has told me that.
I'm going to put it on WhatsApp tonight.
That was
And then I'll get nominations.
which the Ebuka. And Ebuka. Ebuka. Oh boy. Also, you can also follow Mr. He's not very active on. I don't think on any social media that Ayo is active on, but he has a Twitter handle. Oh, you saw? Can you?
It was my mommy you saw, not me.
TikTok.
Oh, you mean no? Okay, he meant likey.
Likey. Oh, well, interesting. All right, so I want to thank everyone that was part of today's conversation. Thanks for the media crew, Digit 1024, for always coming through and doing a great job. And until we come your way next month on this same platform, on your refreshing radio, Digit 1024, and on this platform, Heart2Heart Live, we want to wish you well and hope that going ahead you will develop more financial literacy, make more money, and be a blessing to your world. Bye-bye, and have a great, 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 great evening. Thanks, Mr. Inga, for being around.
Are we offline now?
Yeah, yes.